I'm going to show you how I ran the power bus to power the track on my new Helix on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and if you'd like to see more model railroad tips, tools, and techniques, then be sure to subscribe down below and click that little bell icon so you can catch future videos. Recently, I published a video about how I built my new Helix on the expansion to my layout. But one of the things that I didn't cover in that video, but promised I would in another, was how I run the power bus and wired the Helix. Well, today we're going to talk about exactly that. I'm going to show you how I run the power bus to and through the Helix and how I connected it to the track on each turn of the Helix. Now, I did do a separate video that showed you how I run feeder wires as well as laid the track within the Helix, and I'll be sure and include a link to that in an end screen at the end of this video. You'll want to check that out. There's also going to be some other videos linked through this that will be helpful to you if you are in the process of figuring out how to do the wiring for your layout. You can see exactly how I do it for mine. We'll talk about that as we go. But for now, we're going to kind of go back in time, head over to the Helix, and we'll show you how we do this wiring. Visit our sponsor, Midwest Model Railroad. Their new location with 5,500 square feet of inventory and next-day shipping make them your premier model railroad destination. MidwestModelRR.com. Link in the description. The way that I wire my layout for blocks and for short protection is something that I've never really had a chance to show you in person on the layout before. And in this case, I'm going to be doing a lot of what I would normally do under the layout on top of the support structure for the Helix. So it's a great time for me to show you that. Now I'm just going to say at the outset, I know that there are a lot of people who do this very differently, who don't care for the way that I do short protection. It's an old style, but it works really, really well. I've used it as long as I've been model railroading, and I've never once had a problem with it. That said, I know there are a lot of people who are firm believers in having complete breakers for each one of your power districts or your electrical blocks, and I'm going to do that a little bit differently today. And so I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. To give a brief explanation of how I'm wiring the Helix, first of all, I'm going to wire the outer loop and the inner loop of the Helix in separate blocks. That way they're electrically isolated. If you should have a short or a problem in one, it won't affect the other. So what I do want is to allow for the option of occupancy detection, which I plan to probably install later on these two loops, so that from a detection standpoint, you can tell if there's a train in the Helix, and you can tell specifically whether it's in the outer track or the inner track. I'm wiring my Helix through these two terminal blocks right here. Now, I don't have the wiring for my DCC run all the way over here, so let me just explain how this will work. The two terminal strips I have here represent the red wire and the black wire. Now, you know, DCC is like an alternating current, so it's not exactly like there's a positive and a negative, but the two sides, which of course we need to keep separated. In my case, the red wire will go to the inside of a rail of the Helix on both loops. That is consistent with the way that my layout is wired. So the small terminal block here will be my black wire, which is the common wire all the way around my layout. And so literally I'll have my main bus coming in and coming into this terminal block, and then I'll run a sub bus to the Helix. And for the black side, the same wire can go to both the inner and outer tracks, because again, it is a common. The other terminal block I have here is a 4-strip terminal block, because here I need to separate or isolate the tracks from one another. So what I'm doing here is not connecting the strips with a jumper, but rather I'm connecting them with an 11 to 56 tail light bulb which is what I use to do short management on my layout. And the way that works basically is if there is a short in a particular block, this bulb, which is wired in series in the block, normally will be dark, but when there's a short, resistance goes down, the current flows at a higher rate, the bulb will come on and absorb most of that current, which helps to protect in the short term anything that is in the shorted section of track, so it gives you a chance to get that locomotive or whatever the short is off of there before something is damaged. But also by lighting up, it tells you exactly where the short is as far as what block that it's in. So since I'm wiring these tracks separately, I'll have two of these bulbs, and again, my main power bus will come in to this terminal block, and the two sides will be jumpered together. So these two terminals will go to one particular track. The two on this side will go to another. The power bus will come in and connect to the inner part to both sides. I've made another video that explains kind of how I do this and how all this works. And I'll be sure and put it in a card right here. If you'd like to check that out, you can check that out after the end of this video. So anyway, these bulbs, just to show you here, literally this is an 1156 taillight bulb, and I just took a couple of lengths of 18 gauge wire, and I soldered one to the side of the bulb and one to the pole of the bulb, as you can see there. And then on the other end, I put just a couple of crimp spade connectors. I hold these onto the layout with these little wire clamps. If you just screw down the bottom side of these bulbs will snap. See if I can do it right here in my hand. These bulbs will snap right into there, and it holds them perfectly, and yet they can come out really, really easily. You see, I've already installed this one, but I'll install this one right now. I've got these little short 1/2 inch. These are cabinet door screws, and I just put it through the hole in just the bottom of these clamps, and then I'm going to come in with my cordless drill. There we go. That's got that nice and tight. And then I'll come in with my 1156 bulb, just snap it in, and it's in place. And then these wires will go on the terminal strip here. Doesn't really matter which way they go, as long as they go to the separate poles so that the electricity is flowing through the bulb. It's not bypassing the bulb. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install some feeder wires in these. And again, as I said earlier, the red wire will be on the inner track of both of these. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 22 gauge solid hookup wire for this. In this case, I'm going to actually drill through the sub-road bed of the Helix. I'm going to run the wires under and pull them out here towards the inside of the Helix, and I'll connect them into the sub bus with suitcase connectors. I know I could solder these, but the suitcase connectors work really fast. They work really easily, and you know, this is not an airplane. I'm not worried about it crashing. And in 25 years of using these, I've never had one fail on a model railroad. So that's what I'll be doing. So I'm going to go now. I've got a little piece of wood that I've drilled on, just a scrap, onto this my drill bit, so that if I go through and my drill drops a little bit, I've had the chuck of my drill hit a rail before and actually take a nick out of the rail. We don't want that to happen. So that'll help protect my rail. And I'm just going to come in right here, right next to the track, drill a hole. And I'm using a bit, I believe this is a 5/64 bit, I think. It's just slightly larger than the wire that I'm using. Now out on the layout, in order to hide these holes, I tend to offset them. But in this case, for the sake of ease, I'm going to just make them straight across from one another. I'm going to take my wire, and black goes to the outside. So I'm just going to feed it down through that hole I made and pull it out towards the front. And I want to leave plenty of wire. I don't know exactly how I want to do this hookup, so leave a little bit of extra wire there. And then I'm going to cut this off right down by the track. That gives me an idea how much wire I want. And I'm going to pull it up because just for the sake of working on it a little bit later. Go ahead and do my other black one while I'm here. My previous Helix, I ran 2 feeders for every turn on my Helix. It was a lot of wiring, and really this track is all soldered in the Helix. So this time I have decided to just run 1 feeder for each turn. I'm going to do 1 set of feeders right here at the very bottom of the Helix, which I haven't done yet, which is just, a few inches away from where I'm working right now. And then I'm basically in this same spot all the way up. I'm going to wire. Those wires are a little further apart than I would normally have on my layout. But again, the track is all soldered, so it should have a good electrical conductivity all the way through. And I think with that kind of track feeders coming from both sides all the way up through the layout, I don't think there'll be any issue. If I need to come back and add some feeders, I will, but I'm certain that I won't have an issue with electrical drop. I know you're not going to be able to see all of these because some of them are behind the track, but we're going to do the best we can. I'm going to get on. I want to get on the wire and the rail at the same time. Give them just a couple of seconds to get hot. Flow a little solder into that joint. I'm going to stay there for just a second and then get off of it. And that worked really, really well. So we're just going to keep flying there. Again, I want to make sure I'm touching both the rail and the wire. Get some solder on there once that flux begins to burn off and get off of it. Got these wires ready to connect to my sub bus. Now, one thing I did while the soldering iron was heating up is I decided to go ahead and start these sub bus wires. And so literally I just took my roll and in the case of the black, I just need to run 1 wire. So I just put a spade connector on the end of this, and I'm going to connect it into, actually I want to do it on the back side here, into my terminal strip. And then I can just leave that connected to the roll until I'm done with the Helix. But as I work my way up the Helix, I can just continue to unroll it and connect it into place. And, and then we'll cut it off whenever we get done. Now, my red wire, I only have 1 spool, so I can't do exactly that. So I'm going to run 1 of these wires and run it out about 2.5 feet, which should be well more than I need. And then I'll connect another one. Okay, and I just randomly decided that the bulb to the left is going to be for the inside rail, and the bulb to the right will be for the outside rail. Inside, outside, inside, outside, inside, outside. So, and that's where I've got to keep this straight. So, I'm going to come in here and feel, and these are the 2 wires for the inside. This is the inside one. I'm going to do some stapling on this later, but I want to make sure that I get plenty of space and slack here to get where I need to be. I want to run to about there. And I'm going to run it up to about here. I want to leave a little extra wire there just in case I were to ever have a problem. I'm going to cut a little of that excess off. And bring in a spade connector. Connect it in here to the sub bus. And run this wire up into the end here. Like so. They make crimping tools that are better for this than the pliers, but I don't have one. The pliers work well as long as you get on it nice and smooth and good shape. Got a good solid connection there, a good one there. We'll close that, and that's exactly how we will connect these. As we go up, we'll have to be careful to make sure that those wires don't hang down so that they would catch a train going underneath. But again, I'll probably staple those to the to the side whenever we get there. You don't need to watch me do the rest of these suitcase connectors. Basically, the black ones are all going to connect into the same wire, and then these are going to connect into the appropriate wire for which particular rail they are. So that gives you an idea of how I wired my Helix, and also somewhat how I wire my whole layout. Now, again, as I said earlier, I know the way I do this wiring and my 1156 bulb means of short protection isn't for everybody, but I'm telling you, it has worked really, really well for me, and I would feel comfortable recommending it, that you might want to give it a try. Now, I have made several videos about different aspects of wiring and how I wire track on my layout, and I've put all those together in a playlist, and you'll find that playlist in the corner of your screen in that link right now. Well, today I'm going to share with you a pick of the week that is those handy dandy wire strippers that you saw me using throughout this video. If you do much wiring at all, if you're getting ready to wire a model railroad layout, they are an absolute game changer, as you can easily and quickly strip almost any gauge of wire with one hand very quickly. Very, very handy. You're going to find those in a link of my pick of the week in the description down below, as well as a link to my Amazon page and a link to my promo code with micromark.com that'll help save you 10% on regularly priced items at Micromark. You'll want to check all of those and the other links in the description out. Well, if you'd like some more model railroad content right now, check out the links on your screen. And be sure and join me each Tuesday as I bring you even more great model railroad videos. And I look forward to seeing you then. 10, Lizzie?